Yes, and it's recording now. Yes, Paul, your floor.
Okay, so I'm Paul Upham. I work at Leuphana University, Lueneburg. Lueneburg is near Hamburg in Germany. Actually, my job there ends at the end of this month. So I've been there 5 years, nearly. And I have interviews at DTU in Copenhagen. And I've recycled parts of this presentation, parts of my interview presentation for this, because what I will do is, as the second point says, outline a selection of my past, present, maybe future research with a view to identifying some possible research directions. But I would need you to, imagine those connections as well, because I don't know the law. But I can see that there are legal implications of this work. So my work, the fourth bullet point down, is around how you govern sociotechnical transitions, and those are the co-evolution of society and technology, specifically regarding how the public and other stakeholders are engaged, how their opinions are taken account of or ignored. And yeah, I said at the bottom, sorry if it looks like a sort of presentation on me. It isn't supposed to. It's just a sort of collection of things I've worked on, and that I think have, there are directions for work, legal connections are possible. So, right, there's this overview term called responsible technology. And if you Google it, you'll probably, what I came up with first is a website by Price Waterhouse and Coopers, PwC, and they refer to being responsible through all stages of the life cycle of a technology. So from it, when you're producing something, its extraction, its supply chain, the workers' involvement, through to the use phase and on to disposal or recycling. So that term is often used. However, this is a Scopus hits. You can see that it is not really an academic term. It is a communicative term, because there are, by 2016, 2017, there are fewer than 10 papers per year using this term. So it's used for public communication. More common is responsible innovation. I don't actually use that term myself very often, but I work on its components. So its components are these other four here, whereby you are seeking to anticipate the consequences of technologies. You're seeking to reflect on those consequences. You seek to include, via deliberation or some other method, different opinions, and you seek to respond to those. And you can see that since about 2013, there's been a large peak of work using that expression. But actually, these issues in relation to technology go back at least until the late 70s, and actually, you can trace them back to people who were concerned about the Industrial Revolution. So there's always been concerns about the way that workers were treated, the way the environment was treated, for a very long time. So this is a messy slide, but what I'm interested in is how you can engage people and at what stage. So you can engage people, if we just take the blocks in the middle. So why are you engaging them? Are you trying to empower them? Are you consulting them? Are you appeasing? Or are you managing their expectations? So there's very different democratic ethics involved there. Who would you be engaging? Is it national groups or selected groups that are specifically geographical? It depends on the scale of what we're talking about. How do you engage? Is it one-way polls? Is it polls or where people are shaping the questions? Is it focus groups, citizens panels, and so on? and at what stage are you allowing people to define the problem, or are you defining it for them? And the other one is similar. So this Finnish study was about, we were looking at public opinion of transport futures in Finland and contrasting opinion at different latitudes, geographical latitudes. So it's Helsinki, Oulu, and Tampere. The Oulu is more forest-based industry. There was some high-tech, recent high-tech industry. Tampere is a bit like Birmingham, and then Helsinki is very cosmopolitan. And you get different degrees of legitimacy for different types of future, transport future. So how transportation is designed, whether the emphasis is on soft measures such as cross-sectoral, cross-modal integration and ticketing, or whether we're talking about different types of transport fuel. In the sociotechnical transitions literature, one of the main axioms is that society and technology co-evolve, and their co-evolution is partly dependent upon pressures that may arise at different parts in the system. The system is theorized as being more or less structurated in Giddens' sense, but we don't need to talk about that. But the main point is that there are pressures and that systems can be disassembled or reassembled. Well, here it talks about reconstellated. At the extreme, the whole architecture of a system can be dismantled, but that is uncommon. We also talk about landscape shocks. I don't think I have a picture. So we have this three-level ontology where at the highest level is the landscape of background processes and values that are taken for granted. At the bottom level is niche activities that are trying to break through into the mainstream, which is referred to as the regime. And landscape shocks, such as COVID, can help niche developments. So in this case, the niche development of video conferencing is being assisted through a landscape shock of COVID. And at issue for me is how are the public engaged in this? You know, and this is a long-standing problem. What rights do they have, given the context of property rights that corporations exercise? So all I can do is give you some examples. The first one is actually not very good. The science and public policy one is about gasification versus incineration. So there's a technical difference between the two that engineers are emphasize, i.e. gasification takes place in a low oxygen environment and should give rise to lower dioxin risk. But in practice, the publics don't see much of a difference. And so there are issues around how the technologies are represented. This representation is, I've used a theoretical perspective called social representations theory, which is very interesting. I can talk about that if you want. And then other studies, this one about decentralized energy storage, whether this takes place at a home level or neighborhood level, and hydrogen, how publics view the risks from hydrogen, how they tend to defer to health and safety executives regarding the safety of hydrogen. But the proponents of hydrogen will tell you that it's actually quite hard for them to get around the law, not get around the law, but satisfy the law for their own refueling stations. So I've done lots of these different types of projects, and then what I'm theoretically interested in is how we connect individual level processes, so people's opinions and perceptions, into these broader level processes that are theorized within transitions theory. Just a few more examples. The cognitive mess one, this is a subset of social representations theory, a concept called cognitive polyphasia, whereby people can hold contradictory opinions, or they have contradictory ways of thinking about something, and we often just call this mixed feelings. So people, in this particular example, they were very pro-renewable energy, but they didn't want the near-shore wind turbines that were being proposed off the Danish coast. And I also use cognitive mapping to understand people's opinion of the issues involved in wind power. That was another example with a master's student. And then this one about the Somerset levels. The Somerset levels are an area in southern England which is quite flat. It is protected, has been protected from flooding with soft measures, but they avoided dredging, but then there was pressure for dredging because of the floods, even though dredging will only be a temporary solution and will cause quite a lot of damage to the ecosystems. Sometimes, most studies, so there are a lot of people working on related themes, the same themes as me. Quite often, more often than not, it's about single technologies. So in this case, fracking for shale gas. It's much less common to research public opinion of energy, technology, or policy mixes, partly because it's technologically difficult. There aren't many tools, software tools, suitable for this. So this particular tool we used calculates in real time, so you can use it with people, different types of stakeholder, including the public, to see the consequences of different energy futures. I don't know if this is relevant. I normally connect to engineers in order to get money. So you probably know, I don't know if you know, but about 96% of Horizon 2020 money goes to science and engineering, natural science and engineering. For about 4% goes to the social sciences and humanities, SSH. So in order to get some of that, I have to connect to engineers. So that's what I normally do. And so I've spent my academic life working with those people on engineering grants. Something I'm doing in Stockholm, or with KTH Stockholm, there is this very interesting program called Viable Cities. This is one of Sweden's largest ever innovation programs. It lasts for 12 years and has a large number of partners, which are listed there. And this is about a transformation program which is beyond single technologies and is more about redesigning areas, including the trialing of technologies. So so-called real-world labs. So again, the ethics and legal aspects of that are not something I know about, but I can see that they offer a potential for investigation, particularly the ethics, because the power distribution amongst these different actors will be very different. This is the same Viable Cities program. We've been looking at how organizations join together in alliances, and how these programs require them to change internally as well. Organizational change management. You find that boundary spanners between organizations are critical, play gatekeeping and translational roles in the actor network theory sense between organizations. Then I'll just keep going. I have a postdoc at called Martin David at Leuphana. I'll keep working with him. He is working on the disinvestment or divestment or exnovation. These are not quite synonyms, but closely related. In Denmark, looking at the Danish oil and natural gas, that long case. So normally we think, or I did think of disinvestment as ethically driven. Actually, in this case, it was financially driven, and the accounting structures of firms are important, apparently. Then our next project will be about the governance of rare earth metals for lower carbon technologies. You probably know that this extraction can be quite very damaging, but not enough has been understood about that and how to protect the people and environment involved. Other things I'm doing: decarbonization of steel. Yeah, this one didn't succeed. This is water being shuffled around in Switzerland. It's about these sort of shapes are lakes and turbines, little lakes and turbines. It was rejected yesterday. They said it was too specific. It was about using the lakes for energy storage instead of batteries, so that would have avoided the lithium extraction. But you would pump. We do this in Britain, as it's very common internationally. You pump water upstream to a reservoir when off peak, when demand is low, and then you let the water go through turbines down to a lower lake when you need a peak of power, and then you pump it back up when you don't need the peak. And it would have been like that. I have PhD student, the Abdullah in the bottom right. He is from Afghanistan. He used to be a translator for the vice president there. He is looking at energy transitions in Afghanistan and how, well, we're using an imaginaries framework, and it is about how the dominant imaginaries reinforce the power structures that have been incumbent for a long time, and how the renewable energy imaginaries struggle to compete. They have been advocated by GIZ, the German, various NGOs, but also quasi NGOs. And the aid owners play a big role in these processes. Then there's Naila. She will also be, both Abdullah and Naila will be at, well, they're based in TU Berlin, Technical University Berlin. They're working in English. Naila is from Pakistan, and she's looking at prosumption, the generation by mostly middle-class producers of renewable electricity into the grid and for their own consumption. Something else I'm going to be doing is working with Anuka, and this is about voluntary carbon offsets. So I used to work on aviation, climate policy, and airport environmental management as my first postdoc at MMU, actually. Yeah, so this is about how to handle those carbon offsets. I don't know exactly what she recommends, but she's got lawyers in there. She's got Kati Kulovisi. I don't know these people. That's a proposal. And that's it. I have finished. And finished? Yep, it's all finished. And so these are things I've been doing, and the best I can do is just tell you that, and maybe you can see, I mean, I can see the beginnings of connections to ethics and law, but hopefully you can see more.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Paul. Let me stop the recording.